I'm here to talk about key tools for overcoming conflict in family business. He said, she said. That's really what it all comes down to. So the problem, conflict is inevitable. And I think both the other speakers that have spoken today mentioned that. Conflict in family business is especially disruptive because there's no way to escape it. Your family, during the day and in the evening, you've got business during the day, you take it home at night. Identifying needs and interests is essential to resolving conflict. And cognitive bias, emotions, and disparate conflict styles get in the way. So, what are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to learn how to translate he said, she said into he needs, she needs, and understand that this is the key to resolving conflict. We're going to look at some communication tools that can help you and that I use regularly in mediation and collaborative law. We're going to talk about the common reasons we fail to reach agreement and learn a little bit about how you might identify those, and I work with them all the time. And then we're going to learn about mediation as an effective process for preventing, managing, and resolving conflict. So first, a little bit about me and how I come to this work and why I believe there's a tremendous benefit to it. On September 26th, 2016, my father's estate was finally closed. Well, after almost 3 years to the day following his death, 2 administrators in a battle over a third, a combination of 5 law firms, and almost $750,000 in legal costs later, we were finally finished. My parents were very hardworking, well-intentioned people. My father was a medical professional whose avocation was purchasing commercial real estate and building single-tenant net leased properties. And he did that for a well-known insurance company that wanted to enter the Chicagoland area in the 1960s and 70s. My parents held on to those properties for quite a while. In the 90s through 2005, they started selling some of those properties, acquiring others in 1031 exchanges. At one point in time, my brother, my father, my mother, and I were all in real estate. Whether it was management or brokerage, whether it was private firms or with a family business, we were all connected in some way to real estate. In fact, we spent a lot of time looking at properties together. That was one of our family hobbies, so to speak. When my parents put together their estate plan, they put the properties in a family limited partnership. They made themselves general partners. They made my siblings and I and my children, as well as their trusts, limited partners in the family limited partnership. My sister was a medical professional. She followed in my father's footsteps. She took over his practice. And in the last 25 years of my father's life, my brother, my sister, and my father all officed from the same building, and they saw each other almost every day during that time. When the market collapsed in 2008, well, let me step back for a second. I was a practicing attorney for many years. I was in a litigation-oriented practice, and I also worked for a major medical center in the Chicago area for several years before I decided that the adversarial nature of law was really very depleting and unsatisfying to me. And so I moved into commercial real estate as a profession, and I worked in that area for several years. When the market collapsed in 2008, I decided that I needed more stability for my family. I needed to support my family. My husband had passed away, and I needed to take care of our children, 2 that we had together, and the first 2 from his first marriage that were not quite launched when he passed away. So I decided to go back into law, and I went to the Center for Conflict Resolution in downtown Chicago to take mediation skills training to see how that might fit into a practice moving forward. I'd been mediating for several years when my father passed away. The discussions that I had with my siblings became very, very conflictual very, very quickly. It turns out that we didn't see the real estate in the same way. We didn't all have the same need to either continue holding the real estate or to sell the real estate. We couldn't see eye to eye. And it became very obvious very quickly we weren't moving anywhere. We were at a standstill. My sister very precipitously filed an action in the Circuit Court of Cook County to have the then administrator of the estate supervised. And so she effectively escalated our very difficult conversations from the law firm conference room to the courtroom. Instead of talking at the negotiation table, we started talking as adversaries through our respective counsel. Between January 2015 and September 2016, I appeared in court no less than 7 times with my attorneys. Leading up to every appearance, there were emails going back and forth between opposing counsel, factions formed. There were documents going back and forth. My attorneys were contacting me. I was contacting them. We were doing drafts and redrafts, proposals, new calculations. I found myself distracted and drained from all the work leading up to and going to court. And I couldn't spend time on what was most important to me, which was my family and my work. At one point, I think I woke up every morning with the case on my mind, and I went to bed every evening wondering whether our relationships and our assets would survive judicial and attorney intervention. So where are we today? Well, we burned through $750,000 in legal costs, and I have no relationship with my sister. I have a relationship with my brother. In fact, it's better today than it was before. And I attribute that to my brother and I spending hours talking about our family, what we wanted moving forward. We did not always agree with each other about what we wanted or how we wanted to handle the assets. What we did agree on was that we both wanted to try to move through this, have a relationship, and be finished. And I'm grateful that we have the relationship that we do. So my takeaway is I'd already known the benefits of mediation. I'd worked with many families in many different situations and seen how you can bring someone to resolution if they're willing to work in the process and make an effort. After having the very direct, personal, and recent experience of being a party in litigation, which was new to me, even though I'm an attorney, I can honestly say I think mediation is one of the best alternatives you can use before going to litigation. It's a way to avert possible litigation. And the most important thing is it's a way to preserve your family business and the relationships that are important to you. So we're going to talk a little bit about that now. So Ryan, this is the ugly orange negotiation. All right. You're going to be given role plays, okay? And I'd like to set this up for you. There's a Jones and a Rowland, and you're going to be asked to pair up together and do a negotiation. You're going to be given a few minutes to read the facts and digest them, and then you'll be given a few minutes to do the negotiation together. If for any reason this looks familiar to you or you've done it before, please let me know. What you should know is that it's best if you do this in your natural style. If you naturally play things close to the vest, do that. If you give away the store in a negotiation, do what comes naturally, all right? This is kind of a game, and it should be a little bit of fun. And with any luck, we'll learn a little something from it, okay? I am Cardoza. I am the South American grower of the oranges that you seek. The only thing that motivates me is money. I want a profit. So whoever gives me the highest number, that's what I'm going to take, okay? And the other thing, let's see, you should know is that our governments are unfriendly to one another. So do not look to your government to help you in this negotiation. It will not, all right? Does everybody have a role to play? Okay, so at the end of the negotiation, we're going to be asking a few questions. I'm going to ask you, what do you plan to do? If you want to buy the oranges, what price will you pay? And to whom and how will the oranges be delivered? Does anyone have any questions? Are we almost all passed out? Anyone have any questions? Okay. Do we have any odd numbers at tables that we have to pair up with someone else? Okay. Is there anyone who's seen the exercise before? Terrific. Yes? We have a yes? Okay, so take a few minutes and read. And then I'll ask you to get started when everybody's had a chance to digest it a little bit. Anybody still need some more time? I see some people still reading. Everybody pretty much ready to go? Okay. Ideally, you're not negotiating with anyone you know really well. But if you are, then you are. So why don't you start and raise your hands when you've finished, okay? Let me know somehow that you're done. All right? You've got about 4 or 5 minutes to... Who's different? Yes. A Jones with a Roland, please. A Jones with a Roland. Do you have... Is there another Roland in the room who doesn't have a partner? There is. Yes, over here. So, okay. We can also have 2 Rolands and a Jones. You could do it that way. And you don't have a Jones? Okay.
So we need Joneses and Rolands to match up. Well, we can do 2-1-1. Okay, or do 2-1-1. That's fine. This table is heavy duty on
Roland. We need Joneses. You're Jones, and you're a Jones too? You're Roland. So the 2.
I guess we're all the same one.
Are you? There are more Rolands over there. They need Joneses. Are you a Jones? Good. It's a Jones. I'm sorry.
No, I should have been clearer. You know, you
I
and
thought I
talked-
said it the right way.
No, you did, but we talked about it, and then I probably just dropped it on my brain. It got pushed out by something else.
Okay, no problem. That's likely to happen on a day like today. Roland, okay?
But see, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to walk around a little bit. You don't mind if I listen a little, do you? Good. Do the dance. It is a dance. Absolutely. May I listen a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we we did offered $1 an orange, then if we pool our money together and offer it to him together, I don't want to. I'd be worried that you might cut me out somehow since we are generous.
Several thousand pregnant women. So what happened is they have a disease that it's attracted serum. Yeah, let's call it serum. If they get it within the first 4 months or 4 weeks.
So we have like 3,000 people now.
Well, this
Some
outbreak
number
is
of people.
currently only in my state.
So you have to solve it one way or
The
another.
amount of oranges out there right now that Cordoza has
And
is
there's always the
exact
option of
amount
just
I
walking
need
away
to
if
clear
we're
all the
happy.
people
But
you currently have.
like I said, we're making an assumption that while the raw materials are only worth $250,000, the revenue on this project must be substantial.
Okay,
That's an assumption we're making.
okay.
Because if we don't make that assumption, the conversation is over. You go ahead and have a good time with the oranges. I'm going to go sit on a beach in Southern California.
Okay,
I'm not willing to let several thousand people die for even twice this number. But you know, it's the old thing about, are you a prostitute? Actually, it's, are you a whore? And then the end of the conversation is, oh, so what we're really talking about
about
is the price. So,
That's right. So
Because I feel like this is a great deal. I get the rind.
I found
and
out
you're
that
giving me
he
100
needs the
grand.
rind, we needed the juice. So I said,
and
let.
keep it to yourself,
Okay.
please. Very nice.
I know,
Very
but now
nice.
I'm giving him too much because I don't have enough to pay Cardoza with. The rest
Well,
of the money.
you can work those things out. Do you know this exercise? No. Oh, you just didn't have somebody to work with?
I was just sitting there. No, it's okay.
Oh, okay. 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 Okay.
It's great.
Thanks.
I like that it's called ugly orange.
Quite honestly, with the brain, eye, ear damage, these children are ultimately going to die as well with this many complications. So, you know, I'd be willing to compromise with you, and you know, we would take half of the oranges now to cure the pregnant women that we have that are infected with this, and then wait till next year and see who, as pregnant women, are still, you know, have I guess gotten this disease. But I'd be willing
And we can say, yeah.
Okay, everyone, we're going to get started again. Okay, everyone, we're going to get started again. It looks like... Anybody reach agreement? Anyone reach agreement so far? Wow. Okay. You're all very, very engaged, and I really appreciate that. Everyone, can I get your attention, please? Everybody? Can I get your attention again, please? Can I get your attention? Okay, everybody? Sorry. Thank you. All right. Everyone, did anyone here not reach agreement? Who didn't reach agreement? Okay, we're going to start with you. All right? I'm going to need some participation now. Why didn't you reach agreement? Volunteers.
Yeah, we were still kind of trying to figure out the case.
You were trying.
What our different roles were.
Okay.
Yeah, we never got into agreement.
Okay, but what is it that stopped you from reaching agreement, do you think?
Couldn't prioritize what need was more important.
Okay, what were you considering as the needs that you were trying to prioritize?
Whether the most important use of the oranges, whether it would be for the stopping the bomb or for preventing the disease.
Okay, so you've got really a disabling, horrible thing that's going to happen to kids, and you've got something on the other hand that's going to kill a lot of people.
Yes.
So two very compelling needs, right?
Yep.
Okay, anyone else not reach agreement? Can you tell me why? Why?
We were still negotiating on whether we could take part of the oranges and if there was any way to divide them to have the pregnant women cured for now and then take the remainder to try to stop the bomb and have them develop a vaccine with maybe the next round of oranges.
The next crop.
We didn't have enough information to know whether we absolutely had to have the 3,000 in order to stop the bomb.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So we've got, what was your initial position? You were still debating what to do there with your initial positions. Anybody say, you know, I absolutely need those 3,000 oranges? My need's more compelling? Yeah, I've got heads nodding in the audience, yes. And what did the other side say? When you took the position, I need the oranges, what did they say? We need the oranges. I need the oranges, right? Right, okay. So did any of you make full disclosure about what the situation was, you know? Okay, everybody felt comfortable talking about my needs really important here. We're going to lose lives. We're going to, you know, hurt babies. Yes, sir.
I talked about there being a compelling need. I did not disclose necessarily. I just said a lot of people are going to be affected.
Okay, so you didn't feel free to make disclosure. Is that right?
I chose not to.
You chose not to. Why did you make that choice?
Because I wasn't sure. This is a negotiation, and I wasn't sure whether we could come to a compromise, and I wanted to maximize the potential.
Okay, so who was your partner in the negotiation?
I was
Okay.
I was ganged up on. I had two people.
You were ganged up on. Okay. Well, thank you for taking that challenge on. I appreciate it. For the other two people who were part of that negotiation, did you feel like you were getting enough information to disclose why you needed the oranges?
I felt like we were pretty upfront right away with our needs and what we had. Through discussion, though, when we found out that he just needed the rinds and we just needed the juice, it became pretty clear to have a more open dialogue since we weren't needing necessarily the same portion of the resource.
Okay. And I'm seeing some surprised looks around the room that some people needed the rinds and some people needed the juice. The Jones people needed the juice, right? And the Rowland people needed the rinds of the oranges. Uh-huh. Okay. All right. And then, of course, did you trust the other negotiator? It's pretty enlightening when you think about it, isn't it? Okay. All right. So, we find that, when people talk in terms of, I want the oranges, no, I want the oranges, we get into a yes, no, win, lose kind of discussion. It's all or nothing, and it always loses, right? But when we get to a place where we're finding out what we really need, then we can start developing some solutions, all right? The parties get what they really want. They're more likely to settle. I need the rinds, no, I need the juice. So for those of you that figure out it's a rind and juice issue, did you reach agreement then? You did. Okay. What agreements did you reach? Go ahead.
We reached an agreement. First of all, I asked him how much he wanted to spend.
How much you wanted, okay.
And where he was coming from in a dollar standpoint.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about the biological worker. I just said, what do you really need? And he said the rind. I said, great. Took the number. I said, great. Well, now give me if I give him that. So we were able to come with an agreement without even knowing, just knowing what he wanted out of the deal and what I needed out of it.
Okay, so what was your final agreement? Were you going to go to Cardoza and say what?
Cardoza, if I was going to pay him and then pay Cardoza $150,000.
Okay, you were going to pay him, your partner.
I was going to pay him
Mm-hmm.
$100,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the oranges first. He was going to pay for the shipping, and then he would get the rind. After I got the juice out, he would get his money. He wouldn't outbid me, and I could pay Cardoza and be the highest bidder.
Very nice. Okay, and back in that part of the room, what was your agreement? Yes.
So we both decided to go in equally to Cardoza, $100,000 each, because Cardoza was going to pay to the highest bidder, and if we combined our resources, and then we were going to ship the oranges to a third-party manufacturer to split the juice and send it separately to each location so that there wasn't any concern about espionage or did you do something to my fruit.
Very nice. I was going to ask how you handled the espionage issue. Did you come to agreement also over here? Is that what I heard? No? No? Okay. All right. So those are very, elegant solutions, especially when you can then move on to the other issues, right? The issues of, okay, now that we know what our real needs and interests are, the juice for one and the rind for the other, now we have another issue. We got to figure out shipping. How do we get around the fact that we haven't exactly been business partners? We've been competitors. We've had problems with each other in the past. And so you really made it a long way along that trajectory. Thank you. That was very nice. So needs and interests work better. When we find out the true needs and interests and we start getting more information on the table, when we disclose information and develop trust in the other partner, or we create standards that we can both agree to live with, using the third party to remove the juice and the rind and then ship to each side, we develop more trust. There are trust cycles that occur. And we get increased joint gains. It's really like going from the plain cheese pizza, okay, to the super deluxe. And I think it was Blair that alluded to expanding the pie. Mediators talk in terms of expanding the pie. If you take this small pie, carve it up into small pieces, you have less for everyone. If you can really figure out what you need, then you have something you can work with. It's not really about 3,000 oranges here and dividing them. Everybody can have 3,000 of something. You just have to figure out what you want 3,000 of and how to get that. So, all right. What's at the root of conflict? Well, I think as both Blair and Heidi said today, failure to communicate, miscommunication, all right? We never figure out that one side needs pulp and one side needs juice. Okay, or rind and juice, I'm sorry. We just don't get that far. We make assumptions in our communication. Some of the other things that account for our failure to communicate, we come from different cultures, we come from different educational backgrounds, we come from different generations, we come from different industries. We don't always understand when we're working with a partner of some kind, what the culture is there, what that industry is. We just know we have to create a deal. So I want to move on to a demonstration, and I need some brave soul who will come up here and talk with me about something that's been important to them in the recent past. It can be good or bad as long as you don't mind sharing the information with the rest of the room. Anybody volunteer? Do I see any hand anywhere? Yeah? Okay. Come on up. Take a gamble.
I don't know what I'm going to share. I'm trying to figure that out.
That's okay. Talk to me about something that's important to you. It can be a grandchild. It can be whatever works for you. Just you're going to take a minute or so to tell me what's important to you.
All right. I've got a grandson who is absolutely phenomenal in school. Not in school, but a great intellect. And his capabilities are beyond belief. And he's not performing at adequate levels. He's failing. He's just not performing. And he's not paying attention in school. He's not getting it done, and we're having a difficult time communicating. Yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you for being a good sport. No, don't go anywhere yet. No, thank you.
I thought I was off the hook.
Not yet, not yet. So you all get the idea, right? What am I doing wrong? What's happening up here? Is this gentleman, Tom, is Tom feeling heard? Is Tom feeling heard?
No.
Not particularly.
Not at all.
Okay. Can anyone tell me why not? Just some of the things you observed.
You're on your phone.
I'm on my phone. What else? I'm distracted.
No eye contact.
No eye contact. What else? Anything else? I'm interacting with my phone. I'm facing away from Tom, right? Would you care to try that again?
Or I can.
Okay. All right. Would you please?
Yeah, I have a fantastic young man, and freshman in high school, and he's got this incredible intellect, and he's got great mind, and he's just not performing at school, and we're concerned about him. And we're trying to figure out how to motivate him, or what's not motivating him, or what's taking him off task.
Okay. So it sounds like you really love this kid. You're very enthusiastic about his potential, but you're concerned.
Absolutely.
Because he's not living up to his potential.
Absolutely.
So what are you doing to help him?
Contacting him on a regular basis, encouraging, asking what we can do to help. If there's something that he needs, all of those kinds of things. There's still a level of that. I'm not dad, I'm grandpa, so I can only go so far, and that encouragement is, I'm trying to figure out how to motivate him and encourage him and continue that.
Very nice. He sounds like a lucky young man to have you for a grandfather. Thank you. You were a very good sport. So, what did I do correctly in that instance? Eye contact. What else? Pardon me? I did. I reflected back. Empathy. Okay. My body was oriented to him. Okay. Tom, did you feel heard that time?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, that's very helpful. I will take care of you later. Okay. So, I try to use active listening skills in my mediation, and I model those for the people that I work with. I often call, I think throughout the presentation, I'll be calling parties, the people I work with, parties. My body language, it's very important that I pay attention, that I let someone know that I'm actually hearing them. I do that with eye contact. nodding, my body orientation. Words of encouragement, tell me more. What else would you like to say about that? Reflecting back, as you noted before. I let Tom know that I was hearing that he really loved his grandchild, and yet he still had some concerns. And open-ended questions. What are you doing to address that? What are you doing to help that? Very important to let the other side, to get to that place where people are disclosing information that helps me understand what their needs and interests are. So, beautiful open window, nice scenery, a little different from Oak Street Beach, but a beach, okay? And A says, close the window. Well, B has one of two responses, right? Yes or no. How many are likely to satisfy A in this situation? One, right? There's only one response that's going to satisfy A. A's already said, close the window. That's it. So if we knew why A wanted the window closed, we might be able to respond differently. What are some of the possible reasons that A could want A could have for wanting the window closed? Just throw it out there.
Cold.
It's cold. What else? Bugs. Mm-hmm. Papers are blowing. It's noisy. Sound. Yes. Exactly. So it's really like the picture of the iceberg. Okay? The position is what A says he wants. It's what's obvious on the surface. It's not until we get to the underlying motivation. What is your why? That we start to understand what someone's real needs and interests are for taking the position that they've taken. If I can help people make that disclosure, develop enough trust with me as a mediator and with the other parties at the table, we can start to make some forward movement. So, if A says, I'm hot, what are some of the ways we might satisfy A in that situation? We've got the open window, looks beautiful out there, but A says, I'm hot. What are we going to do? Possibilities? Yes?
Turn on a fan.
Fan. Whoops. What just happened? There we go. Turn on a fan. Okay, put on cooler clothes. You could, in fact, close the window. Get out of the kitchen. Turn off the light, right? If we start to combine some of those possibilities, we turn on a fan and A puts on cooler clothing, then we really increase the possibility to satisfy A. And we not only develop more ways to satisfy A, but we might increase the quality of A's satisfaction. All right. So I worked with a family in a family business. There were 4 siblings. Bill was the oldest by several years. All of the siblings were in C-suite level positions. Bill was not coming in as much and devoting as much energy and time to the business as he had in the past. He was really getting to a place where he wanted to approach retirement. He had not discussed it openly with his siblings. Well, this didn't go unnoticed, as you might imagine. The other siblings were at a different stage of their lives. They were putting in a lot of time and energy, and there was some growing resentment there. So they all agreed that they were willing to talk about it, and they came into mediation. And what I learned in speaking individually and with them jointly is that Bill wanted to move away, but he was reluctant to. the family business was his identity, as Blair talked about earlier today. He got a lot of respect from being in the family business at the level that he was. He didn't want to give that up. He felt that if he stepped down, that his position as the oldest sibling would somehow be compromised, or the way he was viewed might be compromised. The other siblings were concerned because they knew what his interests really were. They wanted to bring in someone that they felt was already doing a very good job in the business. They wanted Bill's help to train that person so that they could all work together. And so they developed a plan. They developed their roadmap, never having addressed the issue before for various reasons, that Bill was going to move to the board. And they built a plan that allowed him to do that over a period of time that he was comfortable with and that they were comfortable with. It allowed him to train his successor, which was very important to the other 3 siblings. And it allowed him to move into a position that he felt was worthy of respect. He knew other board members over the years. He'd worked with them. He admired them. He respected them. And this was a very good solution for this particular family. So when I start to learn about needs and interests and how to combine different options that will satisfy my parties, and they start to make choices that really work for them and satisfy them so that they can move forward. Some of those needs and interests are really particular to the individuals, the families, the business, the situation that these people are in. But there are some needs and interests that we consider universal: trust and respect. And in this sense, the trust that I'm talking about is a little more the traditional kind of trust that we think of. I want to feel that, for instance, that someone thinks I'm acting in good faith when I'm sitting at the table, and that I'm working with them honestly and I'm making honest disclosure, that kind of trust and respect. And there are other interests that are described as core interests by Dan Shapiro from the Harvard Negotiation Project. Our interest in appreciation, which he describes as the need to be recognized for the value we bring to our families, our relationships, and our business. Autonomy, which he describes as our freedom to think, feel, and take action for ourselves. We all have an interest in being autonomous. Our need for affiliation, which he describes as the emotional connection we have to others, family members, and business partners. Our status, our standing compared to that of others, that concerns all of us. And of course, our roles, the effectiveness and meaningfulness that we have in our jobs and those related activities. So, moving on. When we start developing options, I always take the attitude, and most mediators, I think, take the attitude, that you don't get wedded to, you don't judge the options that are put on the table, and you don't get attached to a certain outcome. There's no such thing as a bad idea when we're developing options. Every idea is reasonable. We'll look for absolute creativity at the table. The sky's the limit. If you think it might work for whatever reason, put it out there. Let's see what we do with it. And we build on prior ideas. Is this making sense to everybody? Okay. All right. So when I understand the needs and interests of my parties, we start looking at the options to satisfy those needs and interests. And then we move from that place to a place of reality testing in the process. So reality testing, I'm asking lots of questions. There are certain techniques I use as a mediator in reality testing. One of them is called BATNA. What's your best alternative to a negotiated agreement? So if you leave here today, what's the best you can hope for? Do you go to litigation? Is that what happens next? You go back to the family business and just try to suck it up? Hope that nothing blows up? All right. Another technique is flip side. If you were in the other party's position, would that option work for you? If it doesn't, how could it be made better? What can you do? How can we tweak it to make it work? So some of the other questions I ask is, how will that option work for you? How can you make it better? What information do you need to make a decision here that you don't have? How can we get you that information? Have you talked to the other side about getting that information? How much will it cost you to get that information? If you don't reach an agreement here today, does that mean litigation for you? Is that something your company can afford? Is that something that you can afford personally? Not from a financial point of view, from an emotional point of view, from a relationship point of view. How will that affect your relationship with your business partners? How will that affect your relationships in the community you're in? How will it affect your relationship with your spouse when you go home in the evening? If you've made this decision to take on litigation, what happens? There are a lot of consequences to going forward in conflict. And some of them are financial. Some of them have meaning for the business and what the trajectory of the business is going to be. And some of them are emotional and relationship oriented. And we try to look at all of those in reality testing so that you can make informed decisions about how to move forward. And I find, if nothing else, that people don't understand all of the possible fallout from going forward in conflict. It's really uncomfortable to address it head on sometimes, but not addressing it also has certain ramifications. All right.
I have a question.
Yes?
If someone is litigating with you, can you remediate instead?
You can.
You know, if someone presents you papers that they're suing you over this, you say, hey, hold on, we remediate it?
You bet. In fact, you know, it's interesting to note that over 90% of cases that are filed will settle in advance of trial anyway. So in some sense or another, they all are remediated before kind of the final trial would be. A lot of times you'll be referred out by a judge for mediation, or there'll be other, depending on what court you're in and what jurisdiction you're in, there'll be processes put in place for you to possibly settle in advance. But as a practical matter, the vast majority of cases reach agreement anyway to move forward. So yes, you can. You can stop the clock yourself with the agreement of the other parties, if they're willing to do that, at any point in the process. And to my way of thinking, the sooner the better. Most people don't take into account that regardless of how far along the line you get, the money that you spend is generally, they're sunk costs. You don't recover those costs. So if over 90% of cases settle anyway, why not advance that process? Do it earlier. If you have reserves for these kinds of risks anyway, what about putting some of that money that's already in reserve toward a settlement and finishing earlier? What happens if you go to litigation? The decision goes against you. Then where are you? The other thing to note is You have no idea what will happen in litigation. You don't know to whom you're going to be assigned. You don't know whether, if it's a jury, you don't know what kind of jury you're going to get. If it's a judge, as I said, you don't know to whom you're going to be assigned or what that person's predisposition is going to be. And you're dealing with that. So we'll get into some of the benefits of using mediation and why that's important in a while. But yes, you can remediate even after filing. So we're going to do another exercise here. It's called dividing $100, and you can all stay at your own seats. You're going to pair up, okay? One of you will be an A and one of you will be a B. All right? Here's what's going to happen. The A's, let's say you're given $100 to divide with B, okay? You will make an offer to B of some amount of money, some amount of that $100. B, if you're the B, you have the opportunity to accept or reject the offer. A makes one offer. B has one time to accept or reject. B, if you accept, then the $100 would be divided in line with what A has offered. If you reject, neither of you gets any of the $100. Okay? First, I'd like you to answer 2 questions for yourselves in advance. If you were the A, this is for everyone in the room, if you were the A, how much would you offer? And if you were the B, what's the minimum amount you would accept? Okay? So turn to your partners, decide who is A and who is B, and take a couple of minutes to negotiate. Do you need a partner? I'm going to get you a partner. I'm going to get you a partner. Heidi, excuse me. Heidi. Oh. Heidi, may I get you? Would you be this gentleman's partner? Heidi's going to be your partner. Okay.
The background is, again, we've got $100.
You've got, who do you want to be? You want to be A or you want to be B? I'll be A. You'll be A.
So
He's got $100.
He's got the $100.
He's going to make you an offer. You either accept or reject. If you accept, the $100 is divided according to the way he wants to divide it. If you reject, neither of you gets anything.
Am I selling him something?
Nope, nobody's selling anything. Has anyone not finished the exercise? Okay, then we'll get back to it. Everybody, thank you. Thank you. For the A's in the room, for the A's, did you guys finish over here? Did you all finish over here? Yes? Okay. For the A's in the room, if we can get started again. I'm so glad you're having a good time. For the A's in the room. Okay, would you shout out some of the numbers you offered, B? $50. $50. 50. 50. Anything else? 50. 50? What did you offer? 30. Okay. Anyone offer less than 30? Anyone offer less than 30? Did anyone offer more than 50? Interesting group. Okay. For the B's in the room, what did you accept? Did you accept the 50? Yes. Why not, right? Okay. For your partner, did you accept the 30? Of course. Of course. Okay. That's so great. Okay. That's so great. So, did anyone, well, this is interesting. I think I already know the answer to this one. Did anyone accept less? No. Did anyone offer less than the minimum? No. Did anyone offer? What was the way I was going to say that? Hold on. Did anyone offer less than the minimum they would have accepted? Probably not, because you all did 50 pretty much. Now for you might be the person. Did you offer less than what you would have accepted? In other words, if the roles had been reversed and you'd been offered 30, do you think you would have accepted it? It's better than nothing. Smart group. Interesting. Well, in discrete terms, if somebody offered you, if A offered you $2, you'd be better off, right? Okay. What would, pardon me? He's a nice guy. You were all nice. You were all really nice guys, okay? Yes, sir.
We did start at 50, but as we had more conversation, we thought, well, he needed to buy a book for $100.
Uh-huh.
And so you can't buy a book for 50, and I can't buy a book for 50. So we said, why don't you buy the book? And it's a book that I'm going to like too. So he'll read the book, and then I'll read the book.
I think you should come up and do the rest of the talk. That's great.
Well,
that's great.
That, if I had the need where we weren't at a standoff,
uh-huh.
there was room for compromising the need. So we can both win. You can obviously buy more with 100 than you can with 50.
Absolutely. You certainly can. Thank you. That's great. Now, so in this particular situation, it's really interesting that it worked out this way. If you had been offered $2 or $10, would you have accepted? No. Why not? It's not enough. Why? It's an insult. It's an insult. Yeah. Okay. Some people would say it that way. How else might you experience that if somebody offered you so much less? It's not fair. It's not fair. Okay. So, perception of unfairness. That's exactly how we think of it. Perceived unfairness, insult, or greed defeats the agreement. It's one of the psychological barriers to reaching agreement that we find when people sit across the table from one another in an unassisted negotiation without a mediator. This kind of thing is more likely to happen. As a mediator, I'm there to help facilitate the discussion around these kinds of issues. So, going back to my own personal story for a minute. At one point during the 3-year ordeal with my siblings, we were discussing the possibility of a buyout for me from this limited partnership. Now, most of you would understand there's no ready market for a limited partnership interest. It doesn't exist. And as a matter of course, there's usually a discount of some kind to the partner who's being bought out. Well, I understood this. I've worked with these kinds of discounts before in negotiations, and so I expected this. What I didn't expect was that my siblings would come to me with an offer of 25 cents on the dollar. And so I sat with that offer, and my immediate thought was, insulting, unfair, just, it didn't feel right. So I was lucky because I have some background and I have some knowledge, and I didn't allow my reactivity to propel me out of the room. And I thought about, okay, is there any rational way to work with this number that will allow me to negotiate further with them? And I won't take up our time now. I'm happy to discuss it afterward if you want. I'm happy to say that I was able to approach it in a way that I thought was beneficial to me. And it did help to serve as a basis for reaching agreement later on with them. But for now, we'll move forward. Perception of unfairness, it's real. And it's so interesting that none of you went there. I give you a lot of credit, I really do. All right, so I'm going to put up an interesting sentence, okay? Two of the most powerful and effective of human fears are the fear of failure and the fear of success. Please read the sentence and count the number of F's in the sentence. Okay. Anyone count 15? 15. Good. Anyone count just 3? Good. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Good. There are actually 11 F's in the sentence. Can anyone tell me why you might have missed some?
They're in words you don't see.
Of. Okay. There were 4 ofs in the sentence. Right. They're in words you don't see, so you don't pay attention. Right? Okay. What else is it about the word of that might have kept you from counting that F? It doesn't sound like an F, does it? Did I hear that?
No, it's not in the front.
Pardon me?
It's not in the front of the word.
It's not in the front of the word. True. And it doesn't sound like an F. It sounds like a V. Okay. So we focus on some stimuli, and we ignore others. And what may have high value to one person will have low value to the other. We call it selective perception. And what happens is we only reach agreement when we really get what's most important to each party. Okay? So another way to look at selective perception, anyone have a teenager in the room? Okay. Honey, I need you to do your homework. I need you to take your backpack with you. I'll pick you up from soccer practice tomorrow. If you want the car on Saturday night, what? I need you to take your homework with, no, not that. What? The car, Saturday night? What do you mean if I want the car Saturday night? Of course I want the car. Did you hear any of the things I started with? No? Of course not. Because the only thing that's important to this kid is getting the car on Saturday night, right? How many times do we not hear what someone is saying to us? Whether it's pick up your clothing or I'll pick you up at such and such, our minds are elsewhere. If we can get everybody talking about what's important to them at the same table at the same time, we have some hope that we're going to reach agreement. So we're going to move on to a little quiz. And Ryan, this is where I need some papers handed out. I promise there are no grades. Please just play along, okay? I promise. I'll give you a minute to take the quiz. It's very short. Just a couple of questions to answer. Raise your hands when you're done, please. Okay. Are we done over here? Anyone not done? Okay. So, for those of you that had the estimated population of Iraq as 4 million, shout out some of the numbers for what you thought the actual or what your estimates were.
9 million.
9, okay. What? Who else? 13. Who else? 7. What? 10? What? 33? With when you were given 4 million?
40 million.
Didn't ask about the 40 yet. Okay, we're still on the 4s. What other numbers did we have? 6. What else? 18. Okay. For those of you that had the number 40 million, shout out some of your numbers. 100. 68. What else? 40. What else? 45. Anybody else want to shout out something? 25? Okay. So, did anyone have less than 4 in the 4 million? What did you have? 3.9. Okay. All right. Anyone have over 18 when you were given 4 million? Okay. On the 40 million, anyone have under 25? Okay. Anyone have over 100? Great. All right. Anybody know what this is called? It's called the anchoring effect. Okay? All right. It's called the anchoring effect. And what it means is, oh, by the way, 2016 population of Iraq, 34.5 million. So for all of those that I gave the 4 million to, I'm sorry, it's not your fault. I take full responsibility, okay? What happens is, all of those who influence us in life prior to the negotiations we go into, they color the numbers that we bring and our expectations for how that negotiation should play out. Whether they're our trusted advisors, our attorneys, our financial people, whether we're looking at the internet for what happened in a case that was similar in our industry. The Greek chorus, which I hope no one's offended, we talk about as the people who talk at us. They are our well-meaning loved ones most of the time, but they can also be the guy who's the CEO that we see at the health club all the time, and we've struck up a conversation. And sometimes we're disclosing personal things to those people. They have opinions, and those opinions influence us and tend to pull us in a certain direction. Do you notice that the numbers, for the most part, are clustered closer to 4 than closer to 40 when you were given the number 4? And for those who were given the number 40 and started out with that kind of, those were the blinders that were put on you, right? Look at where those numbers are clustered. They're higher, okay? They're higher than the 4 by a lot. And that's what happens. And it's natural and it's normal, but it's something to be aware of. And that's why I am constantly taking people back to what are your real needs and interests here. It's great that the Ninth Circuit said you would get $25 million in an antitrust case. But if your case, even if it is an antitrust case, doesn't rest on the same facts and the same circumstances, then it's really likely you're not going to get that same decision. And you need to know that up front. You need to understand what your needs and interests are, not what happens somewhere else. And when it comes time to negotiate at the table, your attorney, who may be a terrific attorney and very knowledgeable in the field, when you first went to that person for an assessment of your case, probably did not understand all of the facts and circumstances that were going to play in your case and influence what was possible and what wasn't possible. You don't get to a full-blown analysis until later in the case. Sit down, start talking early, disclose early, and you get more information, you reach agreement more quickly.
You gave us 2 questions at first.
Yes.
More or less than 40. You created a range. Then the third question is, what's the answer? Estimate population. I answered in a range.
Okay, what was your range?
20 to 40.
20 to 40, okay.
You gave us a range in your statement.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, why don't we just answer it back the same way you asked me the question?
Okay. If I just given you that the estimate in your case was 40 million, do you think your answer to the second question would have been different?
If you asked for the exact number, yeah, I probably would have.
Where do you think it would have been?
Probably somewhere under, but I left myself an opening, and you started with a range, so I'm going to leave myself an opening, you can leave yourself a range too.
Okay.
You know, it's not tied into a box, I've got room to negotiate between them.
Okay. So maybe in some ways that even helps make the point a little more, even given the range. They still were clustered closer to that number that you were given than any other number. I'm not sure. That's an interesting point. Thank you. Okay. And there's another one. If I go to a job interview, and I am just dying to work for this company. They do great work, great company culture. I just know it's where I want to be. But I know that my salary requirements are 150. I've got a family, I have certain needs, so I'm going into this interview 150, 150, 150. I got to get the job at $150,000 a year. The end of the interview, the interviewer says, "We are so happy to make you this offer, and we're willing to offer you $150,000 a year." What's your reaction? More. Why?
Because if she'll give you 50, then she probably has some play for 60 or 70 because she thinks you're worth 150.
Mm-hmm.
You might as well bring it up a little more.
Uh-huh. And you thought you were worth 152. So why are you asking for more? You're worth it. You're now worth more, right? What do we call that? Do you know? We call it reactive devaluation. And it's simply the situation where A rejects a very acceptable offer just because it was made by B, right? So instead of saying, oh, I'm so delighted to accept, yes, the answer is yes, I'm in there saying 180, 180, 180, right? I want more.
It's kind of like when you sell a house.
Mm-hmm.
You ask 200 and all of a sudden 2 people come and say, okay, I'll take it. You're like, I didn't ask enough.
Right, you left something on the table.
Yeah.
Right. It's called reactive devaluation. And this can happen in negotiation too, where you come prepared to accept a certain something, and if it's actually offered to you, you're more likely to walk away. Because now that whole bargaining thing is gone. You're not sure you were right in the first place. Maybe you underestimated what it was worth, and you want something else instead. Really natural reaction. So that takes us to a discussion of negotiating styles. And Blair touched on this earlier today. The Thomas Kilmann Conflict Mode Assessment assesses our negotiation styles and strategies. The instrument describes behavior along 2 different dimensions. There's cooperativeness, our desire to satisfy someone else's needs, and assertiveness, our desire to satisfy our own needs, okay? And there are, the 2 dimensions are used to describe 5 different ways or modes of dealing with conflict. There's avoiding, accommodating, competing, compromising, and collaborating. So avoiding, we think of as leave well enough alone. I am not going there with this person. It's also seen as withdrawing. You're minimizing the issue. Others need to cool down. Now, here's the beautiful thing about these 5 different modes. There isn't any one rigid style that any of us follows all of the time. And all of the styles can be very, very useful depending on the situation you're in. We all have probably one that we use more often than others. And in that case, if we're in a conflictual situation, we may default to that style. But each style has benefits and drawbacks. The benefit to avoiding is there may be times it makes sense to leave well enough alone. And there may be times that it makes sense to let somebody cool down before going there. On the other hand, one of the drawbacks, if you're in a position where you're going to be making the decisions, avoiding the issue may not be very helpful to you. You may be missing opportunities there. Accommodating, that's seen as kill them with kindness. And it can also be seen as sublimating one's own needs for the other. Well, like with taking grandma to dinner, it may be more important that she gets to pick the restaurant. Nobody's really going to necessarily argue with that, right? Grandma's grandma, and we like to give a little on that side. On the other hand, and so it's a strength in that situation. It's also a strength where you can see your way as a strategy to accommodating the other side as part of a plan to maybe say, and this is very important to me on the other side of this negotiation. If I accommodate you here, I would like you to accommodate me in this place. On the other hand, if you're truly subliminating your own needs and interests, that may not be very beneficial. That may come back at some point. You may resent having done that. Competing. Generally, we see this as might makes right, okay? That's the forcing kind of nature. So on the positive side of competing, there's some situations that require a definitive response quickly Somebody's got to take control. If you need to do some downsizing for the benefit of company survival, bottom line, it's a difficult position to be in. It's an unpleasant task. Someone's got to do it. Someone with that competing kind of conflict style or negotiation style may be the person you want to be making that decision. On the other hand, the drawback is that kind of style can create alienation and defensiveness with the others around you, positive and negative. Compromising, seen as split the difference. So we find that this is useful where you've got two people who are very, very strong in their beliefs and their needs. Sometimes there's no other way than to split the difference, to move both the parties forward, get them out of impasse, move them forward. And the positive side of it is you're definitely meeting some of both parties' needs and interests, which is good. On the other hand, it's seen as, it's got a negative connotation, doesn't it? Compromising doesn't feel quite right. It feels like you're both leaving something on the table. So that's why when we look at collaborating, two heads are better than one. And it's a way of trying to meet the highest needs and interests of both parties. Another example. Couple. Well, you know what? They really love each other. They're going out for a nice Saturday night dinner. And they agree in advance. They compromise on the restaurant they're going to. Over dinner, they compromise on which movie they're going to see. And the next day, they have a conversation and figure out there were trades to be made. She cared much more about the restaurant that they went to. He cared more about the movie. So really, probably great intentions kept them from really talking to one another about what would have really satisfied both of them. So they met some of the needs of both parties, but they could have met more of the needs of both parties if they had talked more, if the communication had been fuller, and they'd really gotten their needs and interests on the table. So we talk about the tendency to meet others' needs with cooperativeness, assertiveness, meeting your own needs. And we find that the best agreements, the ones where you've most fully addressed the conflict, where the parties are happiest with the results, and where the relationships are the best, are the ones that have been reached through collaborating. Collaborating is appropriate almost all of the time. So, principles of mediation. Mediation's voluntary. I need to have all of the people at the table in order for you to be able to reach agreement. So that means everyone has to want to participate because it's voluntary. You go to litigation, you have the subpoena power of the court, you can bring in anybody you want to. They may not stay, the court may determine that they're not necessary or they're not appropriate parties, but in mediation, I need the parties there voluntarily. Also, I need the right parties. I need the people who have the authority to make the decision. I need the people who have the knowledge of the situation and can make the decision. Self-determination, very important in mediation. What we emphasize is, and what I frequently say is, the mediator controls the process, the parties control the outcome. You have to want to make your own decisions. You have to be capable of making your own decisions, and it's my job to facilitate a process so that at the end, you have enough information and you feel comfortable enough about what it is you're trying to accomplish to make your own decisions and control your assets, your business, your relationships. Privacy and confidentiality. The litigation setting cannot promise that. In mediation, we can. If confidentiality and privacy is important to you, You could enter into an agreement that we negotiate to protect that. And I cannot be compelled to testify in court. Mediation values relationships. When my siblings and I were before Judge Riley in the probate division of the Circuit Court of Cook County, Judge Riley made his decisions about our case along what was appropriate in terms of the statutes that applied, probate and estate law. Judge Riley didn't care about my relationship with my siblings, who was older, who was younger, who was in the business, who wasn't in the business. That never entered his mind. In mediation, we can take into account the relationships that you value. So the role of the mediator, I provide the process. I'm a neutral. I do not make any decisions in mediation. That's not my role. I don't judge the decisions you come to. If your decisions are appropriate for you, if they work for your company, if they work for your relationships, that's fine by me. You don't have to meet any kind of judicial or public policy standard that's out there. I facilitate communication and understanding. I foster a respectful environment. People have to feel respected in order to participate. They have to feel that I am listening. They have to feel that the other side is listening in order to participate and disclose what's important to them. My role is to identify the parties' needs and interests and to keep those interests top of mind. When you get pulled to one side or another because of information you have or other situations you're aware of, or you're concerned about going back and talking to so-and-so and what they're going to say about your decision, I pull you back. What's important to you? And I help you develop the options and then reality test them, not only to make sure that they respond to your needs and interests, but also to make sure that they're workable and that they're sustainable. And I help you overcome the psychological barriers to agreement, some of which we acknowledged here today. I see it as a process of assisting parties to create and reach agreement with less expense while saving time and preserving family and business relationships. Now, I have to acknowledge, and Blair alluded to this, there are times mediation really is not appropriate and it doesn't work. Mental health disorders. Diagnosed, undiagnosed, if somebody is not capable of participating, if they're not capable of making decisions for themselves for whatever reason, if they can't engage at the table, I can't help you reach agreement with that necessary party. Desire to set a legal precedent. Since mediation is private and confidential, there's nothing that happens in the mediation room that you're going to be able to take out and apply it to your industry. You can't say, by the way, this is our standard for the next 20 years in this industry. I can't help you with that. If there's an emergency or imminent harm that you're concerned about, you need to probably take that to court and do whatever your attorneys advise. Refusal of a party to participate. Again, I can't force a party in to mediation because it's voluntary. That's what we value. There's a book that I read to work with one of your peer groups by Dr. Henry Cloud, Necessary Endings. And in that book, he identifies different styles of personality. There are some people that want to take down whatever it is you've been building up all these years. If that's the case, I can't work with that evil person. That's not a willing participant, somebody who wants to become informed and make a decision. So in summary, miscommunication and non-communication are inevitable. Conflict is unavoidable. Parties typically are not aware of their own needs and interests. Active listening needs to be facilitated. Psychological barriers to agreement have to be overcome. They have to be identified first and then overcome. And conflict styles should evolve, must evolve to become collaborative. Again, we find that our best agreements are ones that are reached through collaboration. To my way of thinking, mediation addresses all of these factors in a process that is as much art as science. And I think Sandra Day O'Connor, former Justice of the United States Supreme Court, said it best and said it very accurately when she said, and I quote, "The courts of this country should not be the places where resolution of disputes begins. They should be the places where the disputes end after alternative methods of resolving disputes have been considered and tried." So thank you very much for your participation. I so appreciate your willingness to do the exercises and be enthusiastic. Thank you.